All right, IU fans, look, those first few games this year were a little shaky, goes without saying, but your Indiana Hoosiers are off to a flying 2-0 start in Big Ten play. They rocked Maryland at Assembly Hall on Friday night. Kurt Signetti said a few things at Assembly Hall. And then Tuesday, the Hoosiers went to Ann Arbor and they won their fourth straight against the Wolverines. 78-75 on Tuesday night. Matt and I will dive into our immediate observations from IU's first two wins, preview the big non-conference game against Auburn coming up on Saturday, and digest and discuss a few key storylines we've seen with this basketball team, and so much more here on episode 317 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Wednesday, December 6th, 2023, where I'm your host, Nithin Christian. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, Indiana's 2-0. Kel'el Ware's awesome. Malik Renew's consistent. Gabe Cup stepping in. What are your immediate takeaways from IU's 2-0 start in conference play?
Well, they beat two of the worst teams in the conference.
Oh,
Let's not sugarcoat this.
Alert.
Right? But you beat one on the road, which you're never gonna not take a Big Ten road win. You need all of those you can get, right?
Sure, Indiana's not one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They were 7-point underdogs when I checked against Michigan. What happened there?
I don't know what Vegas knows.
What happened there, Matt?
About Big Ten basketball right now. I think they're just as confused as Ant and I were when I was trying to help him make his top 10 rankings today. We made it 9 because after 9, we couldn't figure out who 10 was. We sat there for it took us 5 minutes to get the top 9, which normally takes us maybe 15 minutes of actually talking. It took us 9 minutes to get the top 9. It took us 30 minutes of sitting there going over every statistic in the book. And we still couldn't figure out who 10 was. We're like, you know what? We'll do a top 10 next week when somebody eventually wins a basketball game. So, yeah, we'll see. But Indiana is for sure top 7, top 6 in the conference. They're 2-0 right now. You beat a Maryland team in what, in my opinion, was their most impressive performance of the year and most complete performance of the year.
Yeah.
They basically manhandled that game outside of a very brief
they took their
moment of taking their foot off the gas. I thought they were going to throw it there for half a second, but no, I mean, pretty much a complete game from them, and then played one of their more mediocre halves in the first half of Michigan, but then just came out and did what was needed to be done to win on the road in a somewhat hostile environment, because you can't really call it a hostile environment. There was 5 people in the crowd, but to beat Michigan on the road in their own stadium, that's impressive to me. And especially both of those games were done without your senior leader point guard and Xavier Johnson. That is matters. A steal for me. A steal, right?
I agree.
If we're at full strength, I think Indiana should obviously manhandle both of those teams. But last week, if you had asked me what I thought we were going to go, I think I said 1-1, right? I think we would be okay winning 1 and go on the road. You lose to Michigan without your starting point guard. Okay, no one's complaining. No one's complaining. I'm okay with that. Everything's fine. We move on. We try to take 1 off of Auburn or Kansas, right? Exactly. Next couple games. Now you're playing with house money. If you beat Auburn, all of a sudden, okay, now you've beaten a net top 50 team, right? And you're looking to possibly go back home and make it a 4 out of 4 against Kansas, right? There is an opportunity here to take Indiana's mediocre start to the season and turn it around and genuinely make it a serious contending start, instead of what it was right now, which is just again, mediocre at best. And and just kind of middling, they can kind of put themselves up into that second tier of Big Ten teams. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to all of a sudden be competing in the power rankings with Purdue,
Yeah.
Illinois, and Wisconsin, because they've done a lot more in the non-conference than what Indiana's done. But you watch Indiana beat Auburn in Atlanta. You watch Indiana make it at least a tough game against Kansas at home in Assembly Hall, and you'll start to see some people come around on this team that, hey, maybe the Hoosiers are for real.
Right. No, that would be wonderful to see. To me, a lot of folks do understandably say that the start of Indiana's season was mediocre and it was underwhelming. But I'm going to give credit to the players and to the coaches. They used those 3 games as a starting point, as a foundation, and they've learned. They've learned since then. They've improved since then. The one thing I've always said is, athletes, sports coaches, players, whatever, they have the right to get better. So just because you've seen something for the past doesn't mean they can't improve in the future. And you're seeing Mackenzie Mbako, for example, not missing assignments on the defensive side of the court.
They've gotten better, yeah.
You're seeing Kel'el Ware improve his game. You're seeing Malik Renew improve his game, especially from a rebounding standpoint, where you're also seeing guards and wings involved as far as the rebounding aspect. Indiana's not losing the rebounding battle by 10, 12, 14 boards like they did against UConn, or it was even more than that. They're winning them. And if they're not winning them, they're close. And that makes a big difference. You're not only getting stops, but you're finishing them with rebounds. I thought Mike Woodson did a very good job at the end of the game on Tuesday night. Foul up 3. Simple stuff. NBA mindset. Mm-hmm. You're seeing Mike Woodson put Kel'el Ware on the inbound, the full court inbound to end the game. And he already at 7 feet tall jumps another 4 feet to block the inbound pass right back in the face of the Michigan inbounder to clinch the win. Hey, the best way to secure a 2-point win is not letting the other team get the shot off. So As far as I'm concerned, I'm seeing a lot of growth. I'm seeing a lot of improvement from this basketball team. There were a lot of issues that were unearthed in that Florida Gulf Coast game, Army, Wright State, UConn. And then since then, they've fixed it. They've adjusted. They've course corrected. And in fact, Indiana's covered the spread in each of their last 4 games, for those of you that care about such things. So the Hoosiers are now 2-0 in Big Ten play, the first time since 2018, 2019, where that's been the case. Matt, I love watching Kel'el Ware play basketball. I mean, you're talking about someone who was thrust to the curb at Oregon. They couldn't find playing time for him. And the Ducks missed out on the NCAA tournament last year. How woefully unfortunate that they couldn't find playing time for their 5-star do-everything center. What a scalp here by Mike Woodson. What a find. You clearly see the assistants in Rosemond and Walsh and Hunter have a clear game plan for him. I'm being honest with you, Matt. I think Ware is still just scratching the surface at Indiana. You're talking about double-figure performances scoring. He's getting 8, 10, 12 rebounds consistently. The defensive effort's impressive. I mean, Kel'el Ware has to have exceeded your expectations to this point. How much higher can he go? Because, wow, I'm telling you, from what I'm seeing here, this guy looks all the part of a lottery pick coming up.
I mean, I think he'll probably end up being somewhere in the lottery. I couldn't tell you where right now off the top of my head because there's still so much to unfold. And again, a lot of people are going to move up and down come pro days and combine and da-da-da-da-da. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the first bigs off the board in this next draft. And again, he, like you said, last year was sitting behind Dante, right? And Oregon's other big, who are both injured right now, right? But
what were they doing?
I mean, maybe his motor issues were correct. Maybe he wasn't giving it his all in practice. We're not
That's changed now.
Coaches there, right? Yeah. That's Mike Woodson's coaching, right? Yeah. This is what he was known for in the NBA. was being able to develop players and get the best out of them and figure out, what makes them work in his basketball team and in his system. And that's what he's doing with Ware, and it's probably what he'll do with McNeely and hopefully Queen next year, and what he'll do with the next transfers that come in. I said this when we got Kel'el Ware, right? The motor issues are a big deal. If Indiana can figure out how to make him good, I mean, the sky's the limit for what Indiana can do in the transfer portal going forward. Jeez, right? Because now you can just put tape on of Kel'el Ware going absolutely ham in these games, right? And every transfer is going to go, why can't I do that? Now, will Indiana be in a market for a transfer big in the portal next year? Most likely not. But
we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, lots of things to unfold, a lot of things to happen, but given who's on the roster right now and who hopefully we're getting in recruiting here, hopefully soon, we probably won't be looking for a big, but then you can go to guards and be like, look at the shots that Trey Galloway gets. Look at the shot that Xavier Johnson gets. Look at what we ran for Jalen Hood-Schifino. This can be you, right? And you look at a guy like a Dalton Connect, who's doing really well at Tennessee, up from National Player of the Year, by the way.
Yeah.
Right now, very firmly up in that conversation. Woodson's going to be able to show them what he did with Ware and be like, I can do this with you. And that is more important for the future of this basketball program than almost any 5-star committing, right? I say almost any. I think Dylan Harper would have been nice. But, that's neither here nor there.
Dylan Harper would have been nice. I'm thinking about Kel'el Ware though, and it reminds me of a situation where, you think about the success stories now, right? It goes Trace Jackson Davis and Kel'el Ware and Malik Renew, who continues to get better. I mean, if you're a big, right, like, bigs don't regress. I would even argue Jordan Geronimo and Logan Duncan were better as their time at Indiana went on, and they wanted to go elsewhere. I don't blame them. But, like, you think about bigs in this league. If you want to play Big Ten basketball as a center, I'm not really sure who else can hold a better argument, a stronger argument to Indiana other than Purdue, right? And when you look at Kel'el Ware right now, he's averaging 17 plus points per game, 9 plus rebounds a game, 1.5 plus blocks per game. There's a very short list of centers who are meeting those marks this year. And I believe it's a list of 6. One of them is Kel'el Ware. 2 of them are Zach Edey and Hunter Dickinson.
Right.
And so, you're looking at, once again, Mike Woodson putting another big on the floor that's going toe-to-toe with Edey and Dickinson like he did last year with TJD. That says everything about the player development that Indiana was missing in the Archie Miller tenure. So I really like seeing this growth, this improvement from the bigs here. Malik Renew keeps getting better. Let's talk about the guards, though, for a second, Matt, because without Xavier Johnson, we saw a little bit of everything from Gabe Cupps, Trey Galloway, CJ Gunn. Galloway was awesome on Friday, struggled on Tuesday. Cupps not really producing on offense, but hanging in there defensively, if not maybe even winning defensively against Jameer Young and Doug McDaniel. CJ Gunn struggled against Maryland, but 4 steals against Michigan. Indiana's guards are going to be a talking point all season long. But as long as Xavier Johnson's out, what did you like seeing from Indiana's backcourt over the course of the last couple games?
Okay, so there's actually not a ton to like about IU's backcourt. I mean, defensively, you brought it up. I thought they played pretty decently both games. And
counts for something.
Doug McDaniel kind of was shooting himself in his own foot, if we're going to be honest, by taking some bad shots and then obviously getting cold. And then at late in the game when they need him to score, he wasn't able to.
Sure.
But all that being said, Gabe Cupps is going to figure it out offensively. I think we fully believe that. Me and you both, sure. And most of Hoosier Nation, right? Believe that he'll figure it out, right? He's a freshman guard coming to the Big Ten, playing a role that he's clearly didn't expect to be playing, right? Come week, what is it?
Hey, we're
1
gonna
month into
start
the
you
season,
in Big Ten play. Have
right?
fun.
Exactly. I don't think anybody fully expected Cups to be where he's at right now. So for him to be out there offensively and not be like a complete negative is honestly kind of impressive to me.
He's hanging in there.
He is hanging in there, and I think he'll start shooting the ball more when we get like playing against bigger, more versatile teams, right? Because he's gonna need to be able to. All right, they double, Ware in the post. He's got to be able to hit a shot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what he does. I thought CJ Gunn had his best game as a Hoosier last game, and by a mile. He was
yeah.
Honestly, in my opinion, last game, CJ Gunn was our best player.
8 points, 4 steals.
The
We'll
the 4 steals is what is important to me because we needed all 4 of those steals, all of them.
Yeah.
All of them were free baskets that we ended up scoring off of. And those steals basically won Indiana the game. And then on top of that, his timely threes also kept
huge.
Indiana in the game when they were kind of struggling offensively.
We hit 3 of them. We hit 3 of them all night, Matt. He had 2. He had 2 of the 3. Oh man. CJ stepping up. That means so much to this team.
Yeah, it means so much. And Galloway stepped up in the second half too. Like, let's give props to Galloway. Galloway was an absolute dropped a nothing burger
nightmare
in the first half, and then ended up coming out in the second half and had 9 and had some of the more important plays defensively. I thought on their guards and yeah. So Indiana was able to defensively go into Ann Arbor and match up with who I thought Michigan was going to give them absolute nightmare headaches, especially about Xavier Johnson. I'm just seeing Doug McDaniel go off for like 40. I remember he went off at Oregon for like 36.
It was
almost
40.
Overtime. Yeah, it was almost 40 and an overtime loss. And I would go out on a limb and say that Oregon's guards are better equipped to play Michigan's guard than Indiana's guards.
They're just older, if nothing else, except Shellstad, who's a freshman there, but he's more of a scorer.
Talented freshman and a highly recruited freshman compared to where Cups is at, where Cups was decently recruited, but again, he's in the hundreds. So
it's challenging. I totally agree. I mean,
what like Sig says, like what do recruiting rankings matter anyways?
That's right. Yeah, stars don't mean what. We're not going to say any curse words. Look, I think CJ Gunn's growth improvement means so much, and when you think about Cups, it is really that gauntlet murderer's row already of really good guards. It's like good morning, Gabe. You're going to Jameer Young, Doug McDaniel, Aiden Holloway coming up on Saturday, DeJuan Harris coming up after that, and then you get a little bit of a reprieve. But then you got Kisei Tominaga in the Big Ten January opener. And so if Xavier Johnson is still getting back from injury, it's like, oh, okay, Gabe, here you go. And Mike Woodson said it. Mike Woodson said it to the media last night after the game. He doesn't need Gabe Cups to score points. And I think that's fair. If you ask me, right? When you've got Mbako, when you've got Renew, when you've got Ware, when you've got Galloway, and then you get maybe 8 to 12 to 16 points from your bench, Cups doesn't have to do that much. He can stick to his role, facilitate the offense, help out on defense. It's really impressive to watch. From Galloway's standpoint, I don't care too much that he struggled shooting yesterday. I'm actually happy he was still taking shots. He was still showing assertiveness on offense. You can't take a back seat when your roster in Indiana is the way it is right now. So if you're Galloway or if you're Xavier Johnson and you're having a tough game shooting, I think you've got to keep pushing, foot on the pedal, keep taking shots, trying to get points. But what bothers me with Galloway right now is the rebounding is lacking way too frequently. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, You're getting points. You're moving the basketball. But we know Trey Galloway can provide so much from a rebounding standpoint. And only a couple times this year has he really shown that. He was good in the Louisville game. He was great in the Maryland game, but it's way too inconsistent from someone who's in his senior season. So I'm going to pay attention to Galloway from a rebounding standpoint. And I really do think, if he can continue to improve from that aspect, he's going to be able to really, really help this team. But if you're not going to rebound the basketball, then I think we need to, find someone who's, we need to give more playing time to players who aren't. Gabe Cupps had a couple of rebounds yesterday. I'm not expecting him to get 10. If Gabe Cupps can get 2 or 3, Galloway can get 4 or 5. And of course, you'd like to see that out of Xavier Johnson. Mackenzie Mbako's doing a great job on the boards. That type of progress is going to really help Indiana finish defensive possessions, get back to the other end of the court and score points. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Indiana continues to show growth. They're up to number 65 in KenPom after dropping to something like 80th after their first 3-4 games. So it's trending in the right direction. And we talked about this tough stretch in the schedule, Matt. 4 games. It was Maryland, at Michigan, Auburn, home Kansas. 2-0 start. We'll take that to the bank.
2-0 start. And I said, look, you win what? I think I said what? You win 3 of these games, you're ecstatic, right? So again, if they can pull off one of these wins, I am over the moon.
And as far as NCAA tournament, I feel better now than I did a couple weeks ago. I think Indiana, to really solidify their tournament chances, needs to get one of these 2 non-conference games coming up. I don't think you can go into the selection committee's discussions with your best non-conference win being neutral Harvard, neutral Louisville, home Wright State. Like, I don't think that's going to be good enough. So, Indiana, if they can find one of these 2 games and get a non-conference win against either Auburn or Kansas, I think they'll put themselves in really good position because, frankly, I'm not sure how many wins in this year's Big Ten makes you a lock. I'm not sure 12-8 gets you there. I'm not sure 13-7 gets you there. If you beat Purdue, okay, that's going to help your cause. Illinois, Ohio State, Wisconsin, that probably helps your cause. But Michigan State's not as good as we thought they were. Michigan's regressed after that first couple weeks of the season. So when it's all said and done, wow, their Big Ten record's going to have to be really, really good to get in. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out. I mean, let me just ask you that, Matt. As far as Big Ten record is concerned, if you don't beat Purdue, how many wins do you think gets you into the tournament in Indiana situation out of 20 Big Ten games?
There's a lot of mid in the Big Ten.
So much
mid in the Big Ten. I think 13-7 actually gets you in. But
Okay.
I think 12-8, you're very much on the bubbles. 13-7, you're looking at 6th or 7th in the Big Ten, I think.
Sure.
And I think there will be about 7 teams in.
Because
I think the minimum is 13.
Because in this situation, we're assuming losses to Auburn and Kansas. 13 wins in the Big Ten means you've added 8 non-conference wins to that, 21 at the end of the regular season with 13-7 record in Big Ten play, or it's 20 wins, 12-8 record in Big Ten play. And if you don't have a win over Purdue, then I think it gets really, really tough for the Hoosiers when you get to Selection Sunday. So we're going to be paying attention to that as the season goes on. The best thing Indiana can do is find a win in one of their next 2 games. We're going to discuss a couple of key IU storylines coming up here before previewing Auburn. So don't do anything as far as this podcast is concerned. There's still much more to come. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week. This past week in IU sports. So we're going to tip our cap to 4 IU divers who qualified for the 2024 World Championships in Doha, Qatar. How about current students Quinn Henninger and Carson Tyler, who were able to qualify out of the event in Knoxville, Tennessee? And you've seen a couple of Hoosier diving legends who have since graduated, but still wear those IU colors loud and proud. Andrew Capobianco and Jessica Parado, they were able to qualify for the World Championships in Doha as well. So wonderful performance by those 4 either current or former student athletes that call IU home. Parado and Capobianco continue to train in Bloomington, so you may see them around if you're around town. Of course, we saw the Indiana men's soccer team drop a heartbreaker in the NCAA tournament. The women's basketball team continues to do good things. Great tournament down in Florida. They were a little touch and go against Maine, in Mackenzie Holmes' homecoming, but they put away Stetson really nicely, and now the Hoosiers keep moving right along here as they've done a nice job to elevate themselves into a good position into the top 16 in college basketball. Few easier games coming up. You never want to assume anything, but hey, a little bit of a tricky Big Ten opener against Rutgers and Piscataway coming up this weekend. You're going to get Illinois at home on New Year's Eve. You don't want to take that for granted. But I think all of us are looking forward to the Hoosiers heading to Iowa City January 13th for a primetime game on Fox. I know I'm going to be making that appointment to watch that game coming up in mid-January. Folks, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for The Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at The Hoosier Sound. This part is important. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Matt, 3-point shooting for Indiana has been a hot topic over the last few weeks. The Hoosiers hit 3 threes against Maryland. They hit 3 threes against Michigan. But as we sent out on Indiana HQ earlier today, since January, if Indiana takes single-digit attempts from 3, that usually means success because it indicates Mike Woodson has found a mismatch inside and he keeps going to it over and over and over again. But that flies in the face of everything that you would like to know about modern-day college basketball. So tell me, Matt, which side of the fence do you sit on here? Is it, hey, Indiana needs to find ways to shoot more threes, or is it, hey, let's stick to what's been working the last handful of Big Ten games? When you have stars in the post like Renew and Ware, stick to it. I think you can argue either side. Where do you sit on this debate?
All right, here's the thing. If you look at why Indiana's not shooting threes, it's they're getting what they want inside, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so why would you try to choke up threes when you can just get what you want inside? Now, what I'm trying to say here is when you're getting what you want inside, and then you add in the fact that teams are going to start to clue in on that. Now all of a sudden you're going to see Indiana have to take more threes, right? Because now those shots are going to be open and their guys are going to get doubled, right? So I'm going to sit here and I really want to see where Indiana goes when things get tough, when they're getting double, triple teamed. What happens there, right? And so that's what I'm kind of keying in on. I think as Big Ten play moves along, you're going to see them take a lot more outside shots in games, and hopefully they'll make them because they're going to be open and they need to make those.
Makes total sense. Who do you think are Indiana's 3 best 3-point shooters on this roster?
I'm going to go with CJ Gunn.
Okay.
I think Gabe Cupps is up there when he does take them, if he does, right? I think honestly, Trey Galloway was a 40% shooter. His shot looks broken. That's something that they need to fix. But if they can fix Trey, I think Trey's there, right?
Yeah.
And then this last one's tough. Ware? I think Ware is up there.
I think Ware is Indiana's best 3-point shooter.
I think there's a lot of people that probably agree with you.
I think he is, especially if it's sort of pick and pop, catch and shoot. You're not doing any crazy stuff off the dribble. I just think that's where it is. I think Mbako's got a nice stroke from downtown. And then I'd probably get CJ Gunn into that list because I agree. Even though CJ Gunn's start in his career from 3 hasn't been good, I think the form is there. I think there was a little tweak he did to his shot here in the last game or two. it's just, I don't really know where your options are here. Indiana tried to add a bona fide shooter through the portal, but Joey Hart decided to go elsewhere, and Nick Timberlake decided to go elsewhere. And, it's the way a Dawson Connect. And Atlanta went somewhere else. Ledlum, he's not as much of a 3-point shooter, but he's got that in his holster, and he went somewhere else. So I'm not really sure how many possessions you want to end with a 3 when I'm talking about Kel'el Ware, mid-range, post, Renew, post, Galloway, and or someone like Caleb Banks driving to the rim. We've seen Anthony Walker and Peyton Sparks do some nice things when they've come in off the bench. I'm just sitting here. I think there is definitely room for Indiana to take more, especially outside of the structure of the offense. I think there are times when Indiana maybe gets too structured offensively. And, in transition, I think Mbako is probably the candidate for this. Take a couple of quick ones early in the shot clock, try to get some instant offense going.
Mbako might be on the list of best shooters, by the way. I think he's very good.
I think there's something there. But I do really agree with your point as far as over the course of the season, it's going to be a push and a pull. It's going to be an adjustment to an adjustment. Right now, after what Big Ten opponents or non-conference opponents have seen what Indiana did against Maryland and Michigan, they're probably going to pack the paint a little bit more. Now it's going to be on Ware and Renew to dish it out. And then mid-Jan, late Jan, early Feb, they'll probably adjust the other way. If one of Indiana's shooters steps up, they'll probably have to spread out a little bit more, and you'll get some room inside for Ware and Renew. But that's what intrigues me about this team. I think there are a lot of different ways that they can beat you.
Yeah.
And that's not something I could say really in the first 2 years of Mike Woodson at Indiana, because it was lean on someone like Trayce Jackson-Davis, who's one of the best players in college basketball, if not the best, and work everything through TJD. And then if TJD gets double teamed, rely on kickouts, Kopp, Johnson, Stewart, rely on those guys to do some work after TJD kicks out. Of course, Jalen Hood-Schifino last year. This is different. Where I'm watching a team, they won against Louisville in a slightly different way. They won against Harvard in a slightly different way. They won against Maryland, different way they won against Michigan. And you really haven't seen Xavier Johnson become a critical part of this team, especially in games like Auburn, Kansas, or Big Ten play. So as far as what I want to see Indiana do from 3-point, I think where we sit here is there's probably room for them to do a little bit more, but there's going to be a little bit of adjusting, push and pull as the year goes on. Because the truth of the matter is Indiana's best shots right now are mid-range, close to the hoop, Ware, Renew, guys driving and slashing to the rim. Indiana's got something like a 90th or 95th or 99th percentile as far as effective field goal percentage from 2-point range. That's what you want to see. The shots they're taking close in are working. Unlike in previous years where you saw Indiana take a lot of twos and it wasn't always the best option. So that's what I like seeing Indiana here as far as the progress they've made as far as twos versus threes. Matt, Xavier Johnson has had a tough time staying healthy.
Yep.
And it's been tough to watch. How, based on what you've seen here over the course of the season, I think if you asked us before the year, we would have said if Xavier Johnson got hurt, Indiana season would be in the dumpster.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel the same way today?
No, not necessarily. I still think it's a very uphill battle without him.
Yeah.
Right. And I think with him, it's a less uphill battle. Mm-hmm. Am I making sense to everybody here? Yeah. Like, I think Indiana can go the rest of the year and make the tournament without him. I don't think they want to do that.
Right. Old guards help.
Yeah. Old guards really help. Right?
Ooh. And Xavier Johnson is one of the oldest out there. And so, look, I completely agree. I think you want to see Xavier Johnson back in the fold as soon as possible. I don't feel good. If this is a lingering long-term injury, I think Indiana's guards will slowly, gradually drown in Big Ten play. I don't want to see that. happen, especially when I look at a team like Penn State doing some good things right now at Maryland tonight. Rutgers is a mess until their recruiting class comes in next year. But you've seen some quality backcourts here do some damage in Big Ten play across the league. So I just want to see number 0 back as soon as possible. I continue to notice that X is basically another coach on Indiana's bench when he's not playing. He's so engaged. He's so involved in the game. He wants his team to win so badly. It's going to be important for X to get back out there and find a way to stay healthy, preserve his body so that Indiana can have a full strength team going into the NCAA tournament if they can cross off a few things before that point. One of those things would be beating the Auburn Tigers in Atlanta at the good old State Farm Arena, the home of the Hawks in Georgia. It's a homecoming for some Hoosiers, Ja'Kai Newton, Caleb Banks, I believe.
Caleb Banks is from Atlanta.
Okay, that's what I thought. I believe Yasir Rosemond calls Georgia home as well. I will double check that one, but I believe I saw that somewhere. With that said, the Hoosiers, who are currently 65th in the Ken Pom ratings, will take on the Auburn Tigers, who are 17th, even though they have an extra loss to a mid-major team, Appalachian State, that took place on the road. Auburn also lost to Baylor on a neutral site to start the season. Auburn likes to play quick, and they're pretty good on both sides of the court. They have the 34th rated offense in the country, the 15th rated defense. They like to shoot threes, but kind of like Michigan, they suck at it. Their three-point percentage sits in the mid-20s. They're trying to find some things out, but it's kind of a work in progress for Auburn. Janai Broom, transfer from Morehead State, is their best big. Aiden Holloway, a freshman guard, is their best guard. Although Holloway has come across some very difficult time shooting the basketball. He's sitting at 31% as far as the field goal percentage on the season. So a couple of freshman guards will be going at it in Atlanta on Saturday. Auburn loves to foul. They're going to put teams on the line. When it's all said and done, Matt, this Auburn team, I think, will be much better at the end of the year than they are this week. What do you see when you look at Auburn, and how can the Hoosiers take advantage of this matchup and find a way to get a win where they will be underdogs?
They're just going to have to fight, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to fight in a way in which, like, works for them, right? They're not going to be shooting a bunch of threes. Like, Auburn's going to spread the floor out, and they're going to try to expose Indiana's weakness, which is guarding guards driving to the hole. And then you're also got Johnny Broom, who's a very good big man, right? So Indiana's going to need to basically isolate those guys and isolate those problems, and then figure out how they can thrive, right? How they can tackle these problems that are ahead of them, because it's not going to get any easier when it comes to Big Ten play. Like, let's be honest here. These are still going to be problems when Indiana plays conference opponents, right? So they gotta figure out in these next couple of games how they can kind of fix or at least negate their weaknesses a little bit, right?
Makes total sense. I'm really looking forward to seeing Ware versus Broom inside. Broom is very similar to Ware, just as far as physical dimensions are concerned, basketball skills are concerned. The difference is Ware's got an extra couple inches, 7'1" versus 6'10", and so we'll see how much of a difference that'll make in Atlanta on Saturday. I'm looking forward to seeing the crowd. Indiana fans traveled really, really well to Madison Square Garden. I'm curious to see what the fans do as far as this Atlanta game is concerned on Saturday before the Hoosiers host Kansas the following weekend. This is such a great opportunity for Indiana to get a proper sort of quad one neutral site win. I'm very much looking forward to seeing Ware versus Broom, Cups and Galloway versus Aiden Holloway. A few other nice complementary pieces for this Auburn team. Versatile guard Chad Baker-Mazzara. He's been dealing with some physical issues, but when he's on the court, he's reliable for Bruce Pearl out there. Right now, you're talking about someone who's averaging 8 points a game, 3 to 4 rebounds per game. Forward Jalen Williams is solid. Guard Denver Jones transferred in from UTEP. Got veteran guard KD Johnson. It's going to be fascinating to see how this goes. Bruce Pearl likes playing 9-10 guys. Yep. And what that means is, what you see when you watch Auburn play is they're aggressive on defense. They like turning over their opponents. They like getting handsy. They are very much willing to get into foul trouble if that means they're able to get 3 or 4 steals along the way. So Indiana's got to convert at the free throw line. I'm looking forward to seeing Mackenzie Mbako keep that perfect streak going. 17 of 17 so far, 2 clutch makes at the end of the Michigan game. Let's keep that rolling here as we head into this matchup against Auburn on Saturday. Hopefully the Hoosiers start a little bit better than they did against Arizona last year, where the Wildcats went out to a huge lead in Vegas and Indiana just had to play catch up the entire game. Hopefully Indiana can get off to a good start and do some good things. Matt and I will preview this game. We'll predict this game, tell you 1 or 2 things about who needs to step up in just a moment. But first, a quick shout out to our social media channels. If you have not followed us already, please do so. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and Indiana HQ, as well as at the Hoosier Sound on Instagram. We're not Indiana HQ, but what are we, Matt?
Indiana.HQ.
You can find us there. Join the masses that continue to flock to find us on social media. We got articles, we got lineup analyses, we got hilarious thoughts and observations as each of these games go on. Matt is so plugged in as far as every single game in college basketball is concerned. You'll see 1 or 2 brilliant takes from Ant Wright as well, our good friend that will retweet. He just released power rankings, as you mentioned, Matt, over on It's Ant Wright. Top 9 teams in the league. Indiana is one of them. So make sure you head over there if you follow us and you would like some more basketball content. Matt, this is going to be a fascinating game. Ken Pom has Auburn winning at 77-70. Saturday's basketball slate, by the way, is absolutely loaded. Mm-hmm. This is like the 10th best game. And that just goes to show you exactly what we're talking about here. Holiday hoops giving. When you think about who wins this game, Matt, where do you see this landing? Who do you think wins? By how much? And who's one Hoosier you're looking to really step up if Indiana wins it?
All right. Step up is easy. I think, look, obviously the main characters in this tale are Kel'el, Ware, and Renew. Yeah. So not them. I don't think it's on Cups to step up. So it's not him. I think Galloway is going to be Mr. Consistent.
Sure.
Which is kind of mid, but he does his job pretty decently, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think CJ Gunn. I think CJ Gunn needs to come in and bring the energy off the bench. If he can be as active as he was in the Michigan game against Auburn and get us a couple free possessions and get us a couple, of steals there and a couple of easy baskets, I mean, it's gonna swing the tide of the game. So if he can do that, I think Indiana wins. Again, it's a neutral site in Atlanta. Basically an Auburn home game, to be honest, because it's not very far from them. And they're used to going to Atlanta for certain other events in sports every once in a while. So I think Auburn wins it in a close one. I think Auburn probably wins like 70-68.
I'll take a close loss. I wouldn't like it. It would sting. But if Indiana can keep it close, that would be nice to see compared to Auburn just lighting it up from 3 and winning by 30.
Yeah.
For me, I actually do think it's Malik Renew. Where I think we'll have a little bit of a tougher time against Janai Broom, but the question becomes, okay, can Malik Renew take advantage of potentially the secondary big on Auburn, or maybe if Auburn goes small, that sort of undersized 4 in Auburn's lineup and put up 20 points, right? Like that's what we need to see from Malik Renew in this game. I think if Ware does choose to individually take on Kel'el Ware, Auburn maybe opts to not double team. All of a sudden you're talking about Malik Renew and perhaps some driving lanes opening up for Indiana. I'm keeping my eye on Malik, but I really do like your call as far as CJ Gunn. I'm going to include Trey Galloway just in this part alone. Auburn gives up threes. They're going to let teams take their chances from downtown. They're aggressive on defense. They like to go for steals. A lot of times that leads to the ability for their opponent to swing the ball, dump it in, kick it out, find a shooter on the perimeter. Appalachian State was 8 for 17 when they beat Auburn over the weekend.
Right.
And so I'm going to really look forward to seeing Galloway and Gunn and Mbako and, hey, perhaps Kel'el Ware step out. I hope each of those players gets at least 1-3, maybe a few of them catch a little fire here and can knock down 2 or 3 or 4 of their own. I think Indiana wins this game.
Okay.
I'm going there. I'm feeling it. Okay. I think Auburn's a little overrated. I think their loss to Baylor was underwhelming at the start of the year. And I thought their loss to Appalachian State, which I was watching Sunday afternoon, I thought it could have been worse than a 5-point margin of defeat.
Right.
And folks who look at box scores will sit here and say, well, Auburn shot 3 for 27. But as I from 3, but as I watched that game, I'm talking about Appalachian State contesting 3-point shots. I thought Auburn had a fairly unimaginative offense, and it was a lot of straight line drives. And a lot of times they struggled to beat Appalachian State's players off the bounce. And I'm sitting here going, okay, even if you do get beat, I like having Kel'el Ware down low as well as Malik Renew down low to help affect shots. And I want to see Indiana continue showing up on the glass. They have no chance if they don't bring the same rebounding intensity that they've brought the last 4 games. If this game is close, I like Indiana's chances of stealing points at the free throw line because Auburn's going to put you there. Indiana's shown some improvement outside of Peyton Sparks, but Indiana in general has shown improvement as far as hitting their free throws. I want to see the Hoosiers take advantage of that. Kel'el Ware, he's at 68% or so right now. I think he's a better free throw shooter than that. So get guys on the line, put Auburn in foul trouble, and meanwhile, Indiana defend with discipline. Don't turn the ball over. I think if you see Indiana have over 15 turnovers in this game, it's going to be bad news. So they're going to really have to protect the basketball. And I'm encouraged that this game will be a little bit more back and forth. It won't be bogged down. It won't be slow. Back and forth. Going to play with some tempo. That's what I'm looking forward to watching on Saturday. I got the Hoosiers 77-74 in a fun one on Saturday. Any final thoughts here as you wrap up, Matt? I don't know if you want to tell the masses your thoughts about the college football playoff selections or Indiana football in general, or keep it rolling with IU men's basketball. Anything from your end as we wrap up here on this Wednesday night?
Okay. So college football playoff. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that FSU did not get in. And you go 13-0, you win your conference. I think you deserve to be in the college football playoff regardless. And it's not going to be a problem come next year, right? Because, well, not only is it not going to be a problem, but they're going to get a bye next year with the new rules. Because I believe the top 4 seeds are all conference tournament winners.
Yeah.
Right? Or the conference championship winners.
Yeah.
So it makes conference championship week even more exciting, right? Because you're fighting for a automatic bid and bye for the college football playoff, which makes sense. But I thought FSU deserved to be in. I thought the SEC was down all year this year. And when they continue to eat themselves alive and cannibalize, I continue to agree with that statement. And we'll see how Michigan fares against Alabama in the playoff. I know a lot of IU fans don't want Michigan to win, but I kind of want Michigan to win.
I want Michigan to win.
I want Michigan to win this game in particular to prove to the committee that, look, it didn't matter who you put in the 4 seed. They weren't going to beat any of the top 3 seeds. Then we'll talk about Michigan versus Washington and Michael Penix in the championship game, who I'm rooting for. But I think that answer is quite obvious. But either way, I'll be rooting for Michigan in this first game just to make a mockery of the committee. And it's funny because 90% of the money is on Alabama to win. And I'm like, have you watched Alabama play football at all this year? Yes, they just beat Georgia, but I'm not even sure Georgia was all that good either this year. I never believed in their quarterback. I mean, it was Brock Bowers against the world on offense. You know, like I just don't really understand. I mean, I understand why you have SEC bias. I get it. They've won like basically every national championship since 2000. Sure. Right. It's a great conference. Like it, yeah. Right. A great conference. They've won a majority of national championships over the last 23 years. I get it. but this is not their year.
But this
Next
is
year,
the only year
maybe.
that matters. Yeah.
And this is the only year that matters. And FSU deserved to be in for winning all of their games on their schedule, beating an SEC team, by the way, to start the year, and then putting on on what I thought was a very
defensive clinic.
Was a defensive clinic, but just a very heartwarming and honestly inspiring performance against Louisville, who, by the way, we played earlier this year and was a top 10 team at the time.
Right.
And they have a third string QB that didn't know he was really going to be playing until probably like 2 days, a day before the game.
Yeah.
Really? Because you're hoping you can get that backup back in and get him out of concussion protocol. Right. I mean, it was a wonderful job by Mike Norvell and that staff, and I thought they totally deserved to be in. And then quick thoughts on Indiana football. I don't want to talk about Donovan McCulley taking a visit to Michigan. It disgusts me. Jalen Lucas decided to leave the program today. I wish him very well on wherever he decides to go next.
Penn State offer for Lucas.
I mean, that would be interesting. Honestly, he kind of fit. If they use him correctly, I'm going to be pissed. But if he can kind of play that nailer role at Penn State, I think it'd be really good for him here in Happy Valley. He'll like it here too. It's a fun place. And I'm gonna wait back and see kind of who Coach Cignetti targets or actually ends up recruiting over to the Hoosiers here when basically free agency opens in a couple weeks once the season's done. Yeah. And then basketball wise, I think we're in a really good spot. I think they've done almost everything that they needed to do. It's hard to fault them for losing to UConn. They kind of look unstoppable. I just would have liked that game to probably be a little bit closer than it was. And then you can't fault, the tournament for putting Indiana, UConn, and then sticking you with Louisville, right? So these are your final 2 real non-conference opportunities that aren't negatives, right? Because you can lose a negative game, but for positive growth, these are the last 2 opportunities, and they better play these games like it's an NCAA tournament game, because that's exactly what it probably is. Like you said, if you don't win either of these games, you have to win one. If you win one of them, you're basically securing a spot, in my opinion, into the NCAA tournament. You'll have a solid non-conference victory with a couple other kind of shaky, but also decently solid non-conference victories. And then hopefully you go 13-7, 12-8 in the Big Ten, and you'll be in as like a 7 or 8 seed, and will be knocked out by a Goliath in round 2 of the NCAA tournament. But at least you made it in a year in which,
I don't know, Matt. Is there a Goliath? I mean, okay, UConn, sure.
Purdue,
you're not going to get Purdue. You're not going to get Purdue the first weekend. They won't put you. They won't put you with Purdue.
Purdue. I think Kansas is going to be up there.
Duke.
Arizona.
I mean, Duke's not. So
Arizona might be up there. I mean, I think my sneaky team to watch out for, I think, is Virginia.
You give me I'm down with an Indiana Arizona round of 32.
I think that's winnable for Indiana.
I'll roll the dice.
Given Arizona's Arizona's a very heavy front court team, and then they have Caleb Love. I'd be interested to kind of see that matchup. I think that's very winnable, but I feel like we're just going to get Indiana UConn 2.0, and it's going to be terrible.
That would be sad. Yeah, or maybe Baylor, Gonzaga, Marquette sneak up there. I don't know. I'm willing to roll the dice with all those teams. But like you said, I think UConn is. UConn and Purdue are the real juggernauts this year. That's how I see it. From my end, I think we've pretty much knocked out all the key things. My thing with Florida State is, like, if they really want to pick a fight with someone, they really got to be just be taking all their other ACC partners to the woodshed right now. I mean, there are so many typically successful programs in the ACC.
Shout out Dabo
for college football that had awful seasons.
Yeah, Clemson screwed them.
Terrible. I mean, guys, Pitt had a really good year. Had a really good last few years. They went 3-9 this season.
They lost everybody, though. That's not really.
Miami stunk.
Miami was terrible.
North Carolina.
Duke fell off
after having that nice win early in the season against Clemson. Virginia Tech isn't who they used to be. And so in this era of a lot of realignment movement, FSU stuck with the ACC, and I would have put them in the playoff, but they paid the penalty.
They really didn't want to stick in the ACC, though. If you were kind of reading the tea leaves, they kind of wanted out this year, and I think this is more fuel to that fire.
It's just Michigan. You're gonna have Ohio State and Penn State on your schedule every single year. A couple of top 10 teams. Alabama, you're gonna have Ole Miss and LSU on your schedule every year. Couple of top 15 teams before you face, of course, Georgia in the SEC title game. Think if Florida State wants to be upset, they should be looking at the ACC commissioner, I believe it's Jim Phillips, and say, man, what the hell happened to all these other allegedly good programs in the conference? That's why FSU, if you ask me, I think that's just as important as the Jordan Travis injury as far as why they're not in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rooting for Michigan as well. I don't care to see Alabama keep doing things. Michigan, go take care of business. Of course, Tuttle, Barner, would love to see that happen. In addition to Penix, DeBoer, Sheridan, Inge at Washington, that would be great to see happen. With men's basketball, I'll tell you one thing: this team, at least over the last 4 games, they have played hard, high effort, tenacious, aggressive, all-out gritty basketball. A lot of times we sit here, and I think we did this, end of Archie Miller, early Woodson tenure, like, guys, just play harder. If you play harder, you'll win more games. You're leaving some points out on the court because of effort. Teams like Penn State and Northwestern and Iowa are just playing harder than you. This team, they were by far more willing to compete against Maryland and against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that going. I would love to see that continue against Auburn on Saturday. I think a big turnaround happened in that second half against Louisville where they were down, looked like they were going to struggle, looked like they were possibly going to lose that game. Then they steered the ship in the right direction, beat the Cardinals, and then, of course, they've won their last 3 since. Looking forward to it. Saturday should be fun. You got to beat either Auburn or Kansas, though, if I'm going to really buy into this team in the NCAA tournament. But, folks, that about wraps it up for our 317th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. Or you can go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But, as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.